Indie Comics Deep Dive with Mona and Sam. We're going deep today, and we're looking at the world of independent comics. Specifically, there's this publisher, Lenovations Press, and their story is, well, it's pretty remarkable. This is a company that went from a single comic
about like an annoying airport passenger to like this whole interconnected universe.
It speaks to, I think, finding inspiration in the most unexpected places.
You know, we often think that creativity requires like these grand moments, these big epiphanies.
But sometimes it's the everyday annoyance that sparks something amazing.
It's so true.
And in this case, it was the frustration of a businessman named Len Mihalovich.
Okay.
Who kept encountering the same overpacked traveler
every
single time at the airport.
Oh my gosh, I know that guy.
Right. The bane of your airport existence.
And thus, Tracksuit Man.
Lenovations Press's unlikely muse was born.
Exactly. So it's important to remember, this 2013.
Okay.
The landscape of comics creation was changing.
Self-publishing was becoming more accessible, more affordable.
Right. Technology really opened some doors.
Exactly. And so the Adventures of Tracksuit Man
wasn't just a comic.
It was Len testing the waters, realizing I can do this whole publishing thing myself.
Wow.
So it was a test run.
That revealed a whole new world of possibilities.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
I mean, back in the day, launching a comic book, especially independently, that was a costly endeavor. But now, with digital distribution, printing being more affordable, it's like this whole new wave of creators like Len were able to share their work.
And he has been busy. Over 25 issues across 9 different titles and all that in just over a decade. But it's not even just the quantity, it's the variety that's really impressive. Like, take his flagship series, Section 12. Get this, it actually jumps across 3 different timelines.
That's smart, especially for a longer series. You know, you've got that nostalgia factor with flashbacks to the 90s, and then you've got the present-day adventures keeping things current. And then on top of that, he's got these Lost Adventures issues that, like, fill in the gaps.
Yeah, it's like he's giving readers these multiple entry points into this whole world that he's built. But then he throws a curveball. Instead of just sticking with superheroes, Lenovations dives into Westerns. The Wild West Adventures of Buffalo Bill. And there's always a but, there's a twist.
Right. And this is where you really see Lenovations, their talent for, you know, taking these familiar concepts and giving them a unique spin. I mean, this isn't your typical, you know, historical Buffalo Bill. No, this Buffalo Bill, he's running a traveling carnival alongside his Wild West show.
You know, it's funny. One of the things I really like about Lenovations is how they hide these, you know, like Easter eggs in the stories, like little things for eagle-eyed readers to find.
Oh, it's brilliant. A way to reward the dedicated fans. Right. And it adds this whole other layer of like discovery to the reading experience.
Yeah. You might be reading and catch a familiar object from another series or maybe a character cameo. I've even heard of hidden messages.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a treasure hunt. But speaking of these unexpected crossovers, Lenovations isn't afraid to kind of, I don't know, poke fun at themselves a little, are they?
Right. The Fantastic FanBoys Adventures, perfect example. It's this hilarious, self-aware look at the world of, well, comic book fandom. They took that idea, the whole making comics about making comics thing, and ran with it. Enter the Fantastic FanBoys Adventures. So we're talking basically a group of friends who are, let's just say, passionately opinionated about comics.
Exactly. And the humor comes from, you know, how relatable it is. I mean, they're constantly, you know, bouncing ideas off each other, debating characters, storylines. And yeah, sometimes those critiques, they can get a little brutal.
Well, and let's be honest, I think any fan of anything can relate to that a bit. We all have our favorites and our not-so-favorites. But here's what I find funny. Len brings back Tracksuit Man, like a cameo appearance in Fantastic FanBoys.
Genius. It's that, it's like that connective tissue, right? It's not just, you know, separate titles anymore. It's this whole interconnected world.
Right.
And those connections, they can pop up in the most surprising ways.
It's like he's winking at the reader, like, hey, remember this guy? Well, guess what? He's part of this world, too. But, and this is where things get really interesting to me, Lenovations, they don't just create new stuff, they breathe new life into these forgotten heroes, you know, from like the golden age of comics.
And that is not easy to do. They brought back RedMask and the Avenger. And these were both originally published by, it was called Magazine Enterprises, a company that's, you know, long gone.
Yeah.
These characters, they were basically lost. Forgotten.
It's like stumbling upon these lost treasures. But I imagine reviving a forgotten character like that, it comes with a unique set of challenges, right? You want to like stay true to the original while also making them relevant to, a modern audience. How did Lenovations manage to strike that balance?
Well, let's take the Avenger, for example. He was very much, a classic Golden Age hero, which by today's standards could come across as, well, a bit two-dimensional.
Yeah, not exactly someone you could picture, scrolling through their phone or anything.
Exactly. So to bridge that gap, they introduced a new character, Martin Booker Roberts, a photojournalist who becomes the Avenger's sidekick.
Okay, I think I see where this is going.
Right. Booker brings this fresh perspective, a more contemporary voice, playing on the differences between the 1950s and today.
It's like having a guide from our world along for the ride with this classic hero.
Precisely. And it just makes the Avenger stories so much more accessible to a new generation, all without sacrificing, the core of the character.
It's like they found this way to, bridge that gap between like generations of comic book fans. Suddenly you've got these classic characters being introduced to a whole new audience.
Exactly. And it speaks to something we're seeing a lot of these days, not just in comics, but pop culture in general. This kind of, this mining the past for like those hidden gems. But what I think sets Lenovations apart is how they approach it. It's not just, oh, let's dust off this old character and give them a new costume. There's a real thoughtfulness to it.
Yeah, they're really thinking about how to make these characters resonate, with modern readers. It's that respect for the source material that I like, combined with this really creative revitalization. It's impressive.
So, we've covered a lot of ground here, from a tracksuit-clad airplane passenger to forgotten superheroes getting a new lease on life.
Yeah.
It makes you think about like Lenovations' place in the grand scheme of things.
I think they've really carved out a unique space for themselves. And it goes back to, I think, what we were talking about earlier, the rise of independent publishing. It's opened up so many doors creatively.
Yeah.
This burst of exploration across genres, across different approaches to storytelling, it's exciting.
It really is. It just reminds you how many stories are out there,
What really intrigued me was this dedication to storytelling. It's not just about churning out content, it's about crafting these compelling narratives, often with a bit of a speculative fiction, even a slightly dark edge. It's like they've carved out their own little corner of the comic book universe.
It's interesting you mentioned that they've been around for over a decade. That kind of longevity in the indie scene often suggests a dedicated fan base, a loyal following that really resonates with their vision. Have they achieved a sort of cult status?
It seems like they're on their way. I mean, they've got that dedicated following, but they're not exactly mainstream, But that's what we're here to figure out, right? What makes them tick, what makes them unique. And for anyone itching to explore their work, Lenovations Press actually has a pretty decent online presence. You can find some limited releases on those bigger platforms, Amazon Kindle, Global Comics, but the real treasure trove is on their own website, Lenovationspress.com. They've got their entire library there, digital and print, and they're on IndiePlanet.com too, plus digital copies on DriveThruComics.com.
Dracker Comics is huge for indie creators. It's like a one-stop shop for independent comics.
Right. It shows they're tapped into that community, really focused on reaching their target audience.
And speaking of reaching their audience, offering a free first issue is a brilliant strategy, especially for indie publishers. It allows readers to dip their toes into a new world without any financial commitment, building that trust and curiosity.
Oh, yeah, totally forgot to mention that. They've got a free first issue of Section 12 Flashback right on their website. So smart. Just a little taste to hook you in.
A smart move.
Yeah.
It's a low-risk way for potential readers to see if they connect with the art style, the writing, the overall vibe of the comic.
So, if you're out there listening and you're craving something different, something off the beaten path in the world of comics, give Lenovations Press a shot. 10 years, a commitment to unique storytelling. They must be doing something right. Go explore. That's our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us.